Master Sergeant Brett Vasquez lived for two things: the honor of a soldier and the love of his wife of 18 years, Rita Durham. 5 deployments to Afghanistan had carved scars into his body and soul that would never heal. Sleepless nights in the desert, the echo of bombs ringing in his skull, and the sight of fallen comrades had become part of him. Yet through every brush with death, Brett clung to the silver locket Rita had given him before his first deployment, a keepsake engraved with their names, a promise of the home waiting for him. Rita, with her gentle smile and hands that penned hundreds of handwritten letters to the battlefield, was the only light in Brett's darkest days. As a kindergarten teacher, she'd tell him stories of the children she taught, how they drew pictures for brave soldiers like him. Each time he returned from war, Rita's embrace, her tears glistening on her cheeks, would warm his heart. "You're my whole world." She'd whisper her voice, a balm for wounds he couldn't name. But after his 5th deployment, everything changed. Brett, now harder, sharper, noticed cracks in the facade. Rita's phone was always face down, locked with a new passcode. Late-night calls when she thought he was asleep carried hushed whispers. "He'll never suspect a thing." Brett heard them, and a chill ran down his spine like the moment he'd spotted an untriggered IED in the field. Then came the bank statements. A $50,000 debt had appeared in their joint account, tied to extravagant purchases he knew nothing about, jewelry plane tickets, and unexplained charges at 5-star hotels. When he asked, Rita laughed it off, calling them treats for myself for waiting so long. But her eyes darted away, and her smile wasn't the light he'd once known. It was a mask, hiding something sinister. One evening, as Rita left the house to meet friends, Brett sat in the darkened living room clutching the silver locket. He remembered the times he'd nearly died, an IED explosion that claimed 3 squad mates a night ambush in the Korengal Valley, where he'd gunned down 2 enemies to save his unit. Every sacrifice, every bullet had been for his country and for her. But now, in his own home, Brett felt a new enemy stirring, one wearing the face of the woman he'd loved more than life itself. The darkness of the living room clung to Brett Vasquez like a second skin as he sat, the silver locket now cold in his hand. Rita's whispered phone calls and the unexplained debt had ignited a fire in him, not of rage, not yet, but of instinct. The same instinct that had kept him alive in Afghanistan, where a single misstep could mean death. He knew something was wrong, and he'd find it. Late that night, while Rita slept, Brett searched the house. In the basement, behind a stack of dusty wine crates, he found a burner phone. Its screen cracked, but glowing with secrets. His fingers, trained to defuse bombs, cracked the passcode in minutes. What he saw turned his blood to ice. Messages between Rita and Colin Pugh, his former brother-in-arms, a man who'd once taken shrapnel to save Brett's life, now a broken figure with both arms gone from a long-ago blast. But Colin wasn't just a traitor in love. The texts revealed a conspiracy so vile it shook Brett to his core. Rita and Colin weren't just lovers. They were architects of a plan to strip Brett of everything: his military pension, his savings, even the house his parents had left him. They'd fabricated a narrative painting him as a deranged veteran, unstable from PTSD, to justify a divorce that would leave him penniless. Worse, they'd pinned a pair of 8-month-old twins on him, claiming they were his born during his last deployment. The truth was, uglier the twins were Colin's conceived in betrayal, and their plan was to bleed Brett for $15,000 a month in child support while they vanished with the cash. But the messages went deeper, darker. Rita, The kindergarten teacher, who'd once drawn hearts on her letters to Brett, was a spider at the center of a criminal web. Using her position at the school, she'd been harvesting information from military children, names, addresses, deployment, schedules of their parents. She fed this to a shadowy international syndicate, selling the lives of soldiers' families for profit. One text from Colin chilled Brett the most. The buyer paid $2 million for the latest list. Once we frame Vasquez, we're gone. New names, new country. Another message from Rita was a dagger to his heart. He's a soldier, not a thinker. We'll bury him. Then came the final blow. A voice recording, buried in the phone's files. Rita's laugh, cold and mocking, filled the silence of the basement. He's got no idea, she said to Colin. We'll take his honor, his money, and his life if we have to. Those twins are our ticket to millions. Brett's vision blurred, not with tears, but with a fury so sharp it felt like a blade. He'd faced enemies in war, but this was different. This was betrayal, woven into the fabric of his life. And it wasn't just personal. Colin's text mentioned selling classified details about Brett's Special Forces unit schedules, Safe House's mission plans, details that had already gotten 6 of his teammates killed in a botched operation he'd barely survived. Brett stood in the basement, the phone trembling in his grip. The man who'd once sworn to protect Rita now saw her for what she was, a predator, and he wasn't her prey. He was her reckoning. The basement's chill couldn't match the ice in Brett Vasquez's veins. As he clutched the burner phone, its secrets now seared into his mind. Rita's mocking laugh and Colin's treasonous words had transformed him. The soldier who'd once fought for his country now faced a war at home, and he'd wage it with the precision of a sniper. Brett didn't sleep that night. He planned. Every mission in Afghanistan had taught him one truth: the enemy's greatest mistake is underestimating you. Rita and Colin had made that mistake, and they'd pay dearly. Brett became a ghost in his own house. By day, he played the role of the broken veteran. His shoulders slumped, his voice soft. During the therapy sessions Rita had orchestrated to paint him as unstable. She'd arranged these sessions to build her case, believing him too shattered to notice her lies. But Brett was watching, always watching. Hidden in his jacket, a recorder captured every word, her feigned concern. The therapist's leading questions, the subtle digs meant to unravel him. Each session was a brick in the wall of her deception, and Brett let her build it, knowing he'd tear it down. He reached out to old allies, men and women forged in the same fires of war. Major Rachel Aguilar, a military intelligence officer with eyes like a hawk, answered his call first. Through encrypted channels, Brett shared the burner phone's contents. Rachel's response was immediate. This isn't just betrayal, Vasquez. It's a national security threat. She looped in a contact known only as Shadow, a hacker who'd once dismantled terrorist networks from a laptop. Together, they peeled back the layers of Rita and Colin's conspiracy, revealing a beast far uglier than Brett had imagined. Colin wasn't just selling Brett's unit secrets. He was a linchpin in a global syndicate funneling classified military data to terrorist cells in exchange for millions. Shadow traced payments to offshore accounts, linking Colin to a botched airstrike that had killed 6 of Brett's squad mates, a strike Brett had survived by sheer luck, his body still bearing the shrapnel scars. Rita, meanwhile, was no pawn. She was the syndicate's stateside orchestrator, using her kindergarten classroom as a front to extract sensitive details from military children, emergency contacts, parental deployments, financial records. The syndicate sold this data to divorce attorneys, identity thieves, and worse groups planning attacks on military bases. But the discovery that turned Brett's fury into a white-hot blade was a single email buried in the phone's deleted files. Rita had hired a contract killer, a shadowy figure known as the Cleaner, to eliminate Brett if their divorce scheme failed. The email outlined a contingency. If Brett fought the child support claim, the Cleaner would stage his death as a suicide blaming PTSD. The price, $100,000, paid from the syndicate's funds. Brett's hands shook as he read the words, not from fear, but from a rage so pure it felt holy. He began setting traps. Hidden cameras in the house captured Rita's late-night meetings with Colin, her hands striking her own arms to create fake bruises for her domestic violence claims. Brett fed her false intel, a fabricated combat bonus of $500,000 forged bank statements hinting at secret accounts, even a fake psychological evaluation suggesting he was on the edge of a breakdown. Rita devoured it all, passing it to Colin and their syndicate contacts, her greed blinding her to the noose tightening around her neck. Every lie she swallowed was another nail in her coffin. One night, as Rita slept, Brett stood over her, his silhouette a predator in the moonlight. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. The war was already won in his mind. He'd learned in Afghanistan that the deadliest strikes come when the enemy feels safest. Rita and Colin thought they held all the cards. They were wrong. Brett was no longer the husband who'd loved her. He was a weapon honed by betrayal, and he was ready to strike. The courthouse loomed like a fortress, its marble halls echoing with the weight of judgment. Master Sergeant Brett Vasquez stepped inside his dress uniform, immaculate, every ribbon and medal gleaming like a silent rebuke to the lies that had brought him here. Rita and Colin thought they'd cornered him, their scheme to bleed him dry through a $15,000 a month child support claim airtight. They were wrong. Brett had spent weeks weaving a trap, and today it would snap shut. Rita sat at the plaintiff's table, her face a mask of practiced fear, the fake bruises on her arms carefully displayed. Beside her, Jesus Rowe, a sleazy divorce lawyer with a reputation for gutting military men, shuffled papers with smug confidence. Colin Pugh lurked in the gallery, his prosthetic arms angled for sympathy. The twins, his twins, not Brett's, cradled by a hired nanny as props in their charade. The judge, Honorable Matthew Jameson, a Vietnam veteran with a gaze that could cut steel, presided over the room. Brett had chosen this battlefield carefully, knowing Jameson's disdain for those who dishonored service. Rowe launched into his case painting Brett as a ticking time bomb, a veteran unhinged by war, dangerous to his children and wife. Rita played her part, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her voice trembling as she recounted fabricated tales of Brett's rage. The gallery murmured, some glaring at Brett, others whispering pity for Rita. Colin nodded solemnly, his face a study in crocodile tears. Brett sat motionless, his expression a granite mask, letting their lies pile up like kindling for the fire he was about to ignite. When Judge Jameson turned to Brett, asking if he had anything to add, the air in the courtroom thickened. Brett rose, slowly, his boots clicking against the floor, and approached the bench. From his briefcase, he produced a single thick dossier, 50 pages of classified military intelligence, its cover stamped with the highest security clearance. Your Honor. Brett said, his voice steady as a sniper's aim. This changes everything. Jameson's eyes narrowed as he scanned the document. His face shifted confusion, then shock, then a fury so raw it seemed to vibrate through the room. The dossier laid bare Rita and Colin's conspiracy, their syndicate sale of military secrets to terrorist cells, the deaths of 12 soldiers, in a botched airstrike caused by Colin's leaks, and Rita's role as the mastermind using her classroom to harvest data from military families. Most damning was the email chain revealing Rita's contract with the cleaner, a hired killer tasked with silencing Brett if he resisted their scheme. "Lock this courtroom down." Jameson's voice sliced through the silence like a guillotine. Federal marshals materialized, their boots thundering as they sealed the exits. Rita's face drained of color, her eyes darting to Colin, who tried to stand but was pinned by a marshal's iron grip. Jesus Rowe's papers scattered across the floor, his hands trembling as he stammered objections. The gallery erupted, families of fallen soldiers shouting curses, some hurling water bottles at Rita and Colin, their cries of traitor echoing off the walls. Brett stepped forward, his gaze locked on Rita. "Your Honor," he said, his voice low but lethal, "the twins are not mine. DNA evidence will prove they're Collins conceived to defraud me. Their birth certificates were forged with my stolen military ID. And this," he tapped the dossier, "proves they sold my unit secrets, killing 12 of my brothers." Rita's facade shattered. She lunged from her seat, screaming, "Brett, please, I didn't mean it." But Brett only stared, his eyes cold as winter. "You died to me the moment you sold their lives." He said each word a bullet. Jameson slammed his gavel, silencing the chaos. "This case is suspended, pending a federal investigation. Mrs. Durham, Mr. Pugh, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and espionage." As marshals cuffed Rita, her sobs filled the room, a pathetic sound against the tide of rage. Colin's prosthetics clinked against the restraints, his face a mask of terror. Brett stood tall, the dossier, his weapon, his silence, his victory. The war wasn't over, but this battle was his. The courthouse doors slammed shut behind Rita and Colin, their shackles clinking as federal marshals dragged them into the shadows of justice. Brett Vasquez stood alone in the emptying courtroom, the weight of his victory settling like dust after a battle. But victory wasn't enough. Not for the 12 soldiers dead because of Colin's treason. Not for the military families Rita had preyed upon. Not for the knife she'd plunged into his soul. This war demanded a final reckoning. Rita's fate was sealed first. Convicted on 47 federal charges, conspiracy, fraud, espionage, and accessory to murder, she was sentenced to life in federal prison, no parole. Word of her crime spread through the cell blocks, and the prison's code was merciless. Traitors who sold soldiers' lives didn't survive unscathed. Whispers followed her beatings in the yard meals laced with spite. Rita, once a teacher of children, now lived in a cage of her own, making her every day a reminder of her betrayal. Colin's end was darker. A military tribunal found him guilty of treason, sentencing him to death. But before the gavel fell, Brett received a call from an old contact, a voice like gravel package ready, Fort Bragg. Midnight. In an abandoned bunker deep in the Carolina woods, Brett found Colin strapped to a chair, his prosthetic arms useless against the steel restraints. Two contractors, men who'd lost brothers to Colin's leaks, stood watch, their eyes burning with unspoken vengeance. Brett removed his jacket, his voice low, deliberate. "You envied me, Colin. You sold my unit for profit. You took 12 lives and my home." Colin's eyes widened, his muffled pleas trapped behind tape. In a voice raw with confession, he admitted his jealousy, how Rita had fanned it into a fire that consumed them both. Brett didn't touch him. He didn't need to. 4 hours of psychological torment, learned in the deserts of Afghanistan, broke Colin in ways no blade could. Brett's words were his weapon. Each name of a fallen soldier, each family Rita had destroyed carved into Colin's mind. "You'll carry their ghosts to your grave," Brett said, leaving him shattered. 3 days later, Colin was found dead in his cell, a suicide by hanging. The contractors never spoke of that night, and neither did Brett. The syndicate collapsed like a house of cards. 25 arrests followed, millions in stolen funds recovered, and Brett's dossier saved countless military families. He received a classified commendation, a $1 million reward, and a new purpose, founding a foundation to shield soldiers' kin from predators. Standing at a comrade's grave, Brett vowed to hunt those who betrayed the brotherhood of service. The silver locket, once a symbol of love, now hung as a reminder forgiveness was weakness. Justice was absolute. Brett Vasquez had become more than a soldier. He was a force forged in betrayal, unstoppable in his mission to destroy those who dared to prey on loyalty.